You're sitting there right now, exhausted, drained. Your energy is completely depleted because you've been fighting someone who seems incapable of seeing anything beyond their own reflection. Every word you speak bounces back like you're talking to a wall made of mirrors. Every truth you present gets twisted into something that somehow proves you're the problem. And the worst part, you're tired of fighting. You feel like you're losing your mind. But I want to tell you something that will fundamentally change how you approach this situation. There is a divine principle at work in this universe that most people don't understand. When you stop fighting a narcissist, when you step back and allow God to work, something supernatural begins to happen. God moves in ways that your fighting could never accomplish. He has always had a way of dealing with the narcissism, with the pride, with the kind of self-centeredness that destroys relationships and crushes spirits. And He doesn't need your fist or your arguments to do it. Let me speak to your heart directly. You've been operating under a false belief. You thought that somehow, if you just say the right thing, if you just prove them wrong enough times, if you just make them understand how much they've hurt you, something will change. But that's not how this works. That's not how God works. God has His own methods, and they are far more powerful than anything you could manufacture through your own efforts. The first thing God always does to a narcissist is this. He strips away their audience. This is not something that happens overnight. This is a process that unfolds over time, like a photograph developing in a dark room. You see, narcissism requires an audience. It is a hunger that can never be satisfied because it's built on a foundation of emptiness. The narcissist needs constant validation, constant admiration, constant confirmation that they are special, that they are superior, that they matter more than everyone else. Without that audience, without that constant stream of admiration and fear and attention, the narcissist begins to wither. Here's what I want you to understand. When you keep fighting, when you keep engaging, when you keep trying to convince them of the truth, you are actually feeding their narcissism. You are providing the exact thing they need to survive. Your anger becomes their validation. Your hurt becomes proof that they have a power. Your arguments become the stage upon which they perform. But when you stop fighting, when you withdraw your energy and your attention, something shifts in the spiritual realm. God begins to work on the people around the narcissist. He softens some hearts and hardens others. He reveals truth to those who are willing to see it. The people who once hung on every word the narcissist spoke, the people who once believed every story, the people who once offered the constant validation, some of them begin to see through the mask, not because you convinced them, not because you fought and argued and presented evidence, but because God opened their eyes. Think about this practically. A narcissist's power comes from the network of people who believe in them, who support them, who validate their version of reality. When God begins to strip away that audience, the narcissist becomes increasingly isolated. And not because of your actions, not because you told the people the truth about them, but because God Himself is working to reveal the reality of the situation to those who have eyes to see. This is why I'm telling you to stop fighting. Every moment you spend trying to convince people about the narcissist is a moment you're not trusting God to do His job. And God is far better at this than you are. He can see into hearts. He can work in ways that are invisible to us. He can orchestrate circumstances and conversations and revelations that we could never manage on our own. I've seen this happen countless times. A person finally gets tired of fighting a narcissist in their life. They stop engaging. They stop trying to convince everyone of the truth. They simply withdraw and focus on their own healing, their own growth, their own relationship with God. And then, slowly but surely, the narcissist world begins to collapse around them. Not because of anything the person did, but because God saw the injustice and He moved. The second thing God always does to a narcissist is this. He allows them to face the consequences of their own choices. This is where many people struggle because we live in a culture that has lost faith in divine justice. We want immediate results. We want to see the narcissist punished right now. We want them to suffer the way they've made us suffer. But God's justice is not like human justice. It is far more complete, far more thorough, and far more perfectly calibrated than anything we could devise. When you stop fighting, when you stop trying to protect the narcissist from the natural consequences of their behavior, something remarkable happens. The universe, or more accurately, God begins to do what you could never do. The narcissist lies start to catch up with them. The people they've manipulated begin to see the pattern. The relationships they've destroyed become evidence against them. The promises they've broken accumulate like a debt. Here's the principle at work. God has built into the fabric of creation a law of sowing and reaping. You reap what you sow. This is not punishment from God in the traditional sense. This is simply the natural consequence of your choices playing out in real time. When a narcissist sows seeds of manipulation, they will eventually reap a harvest of broken trust. When they sow seeds of deception, they will reap a harvest of isolation. When they sow seeds of contempt and cruelty, they will reap a harvest of people who refuse to be around them. But here's what's crucial. This only happens when you stop fighting. As long as you engage in the conflict, the narcissist has an external enemy to blame. They can point to you and say, see, this is why I am the way I am. This is why I had to lie. This is why I had to manipulate. This person drove me to it. Your fighting gives them an excuse. Your anger gives them validation. Your attempts to hold them accountable give them a villain in their story. But when you step back, when you remove yourself from the conflict, the narcissist is left face to face with their own choices. And that's when the real consequences begin. They can no longer blame you. They can no longer point to your behavior as justification for theirs. They are left with nothing but the reality of what they've created through their own actions. I want you to understand something about how God works. He is patient. He is thorough. He doesn't rush. When God decides that someone needs to face the consequences of their choices, He allows those consequences to unfold naturally and completely. He doesn't need your help. He doesn't need you to be the instrument of His justice. In fact, your interference often slows down the process. Think about a parent raising a child. If the child refuses to do their homework and the parent constantly steps in to rescue them from the consequences, the child never learns. But if the parent allows the child to experience the natural consequences of not doing their homework, a bad grade, disappointment, the realization that their actions have real results, then the child begins to learn. God operates the same way with adults. He allows us to experience the consequences of our choices because that's how we grow, how we change, how we become better. A narcissist, by definition, has not learned this lesson. They have avoided real consequences for so long that they believe themselves to be immune to them. They believe the rules don't apply to them. They believe they can manipulate reality itself through sheer force of personality. But God has a way of teaching even the most stubborn among us. And when you stop fighting, when you get out of the way, God's teaching becomes possible. The third thing God always does to a narcissist is this. He protects those who step back and trust Him. This is the promise that will sustain you through the difficulty of not fighting. You're afraid, aren't you? You're afraid that if you stop fighting, if you stop defending yourself, if you stop trying to convince people of the truth, the narcissist will win. They'll spread lies about you. They'll turn people against you. They'll hurt you even more. But God promised something different. When you truly let go, when you truly place your trust in Him, rather than in your own ability to fight and defend and convince, God steps in as your protector. This is not a metaphorical protection. This is real. This manifests in tangible ways in your life. First, God protects you by giving you peace. The moment you stop fighting, a weight lifts off your shoulders. The constant stress, the endless mental loops of rehearsing arguments, the exhaustion of trying to convince someone who cannot be convinced, all of it begins to fade. This peace is not the absence of difficulty. This peace is the presence of God's protection. His assurance that you don't have to carry this burden alone. Second, God protects you by revealing truth to those who matter. The people who truly care about you, the people who are capable of seeing clearly, will come to understand what's happening. They won't need you to convince them. They'll see it themselves. And the people who can't see it, they were never really on your side anyway. God protects you by showing you who your real allies are and who the narcissist has successfully turned against you. Third, God protects you by preventing the narcissist from achieving their ultimate goal, breaking your spirit. You see, the narcissist doesn't really want to hurt you in the physical sense. What they want is for you to lose faith. They want you to give up on goodness. They want you to become like them. They want to prove that everyone is selfish, everyone is manipulative, everyone is out for themselves. God protects you by keeping your heart soft, by keeping your faith strong, by reminding you that there is goodness in this world and that you are part of that goodness. When you stop fighting, you create space for God to work, and God's protection is complete in ways that your fighting could never be. You might win an argument with a narcissist, but you lose something of yourself in the process. But when you trust God, when you step back and let Him fight for you, you not only win, but you also preserve your own integrity, your own peace, your own connection to what is good and true. Let me speak to you about the spiritual reality here. There is a dimension to this that goes beyond psychology, beyond manipulation tactics, beyond all the strategies that people talk about for dealing with narcissists. There is a war being waged, not in the physical realm, but in the spiritual realm. And in that realm, God's power is absolute. God sees every lie. God hears every cruel word. God witnesses every manipulation. And God remembers. When you try to fight this battle on your own, you're fighting in a realm where the narcissist may actually have some advantage. They are skilled at deception. They're practiced at manipulation. They're experienced at twisting words and situations to their advantage. But in the spiritual realm, in God's realm, the narcissist has no power. They are exposed. They are powerless. God sees through every mask, every performance, every carefully constructed image. This is why I'm urging you, stop fighting. Stop engaging. Stop trying to convince. Stop trying to protect yourself through argument and debate and evidence. These things have their place, but in dealing with a true narcissist, they are ultimately futile. What works is faith. What works is trust. What works is stepping back and allowing God to be God. I know this is difficult. I know you want the vindication now. I know you want the narcissist to face consequences now. I know you want everyone to see the truth now. But God's timeline is not our timeline. God sees the whole picture. while we see only a small part. God knows what needs to happen for this person to change, or what needs to happen for your life to be protected and healed. And He is working toward that end, even when you can see it. There are people reading this right now who have been fighting a narcissist for years. And you are exhausted. You are depleted. You wonder if anything will ever change. I'm telling you today that change is not coming through your fighting. Change comes when you step back. Change comes when you trust. Change comes when you allow God to work. The narcissist in your life may never acknowledge the harm they've caused. They may never apologize. They may never see you as anything other than an enemy or a tool to be used. And that's okay. You don't need them to change for you to be free. You are free the moment you stop needing them to validate you, to acknowledge you, to prove you right. Here's what happens when you truly let go. You discover that your worth was never dependent on their opinion of you. You discover that you can be at peace even while they are at war. You discover that God's protection is more real and more powerful than any defense you could mount on your own. You discover that stepping back is not losing. Stepping back is winning, because you preserve yourself while God deals with them. The three things God always does: stripping away the audience, allowing natural consequences to unfold, and protecting those who trust Him. These are not promises that depend on you doing anything. They are simply how God operates in the universe. Your job is not to make these things happen. Your job is simply to stop interfering with them. Your job is to step back and trust. I want to leave you with this final thought. The greatest victory is not conquering your enemy. The greatest victory is no longer needing to conquer them. The greatest victory is becoming so secure in who you are, so confident in God's protection, so at peace with the situation, that the narcissist's behavior no longer has a power over you. They can continue their patterns, but you will no longer be affected by them. And that, more than any argument you could win, more than any evidence you could present, more than any confession they could make, that is true freedom. Stop fighting. Start trusting. Watch what God does.